Hey, this is a video for 8.11, Sewage Treatment. So go ahead and check out the overview and set up your guided notes. So if any of you live in Greenpoint, you've probably seen these digester eggs from the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant. College Board calls this sewage treatment, but on some of the tests they also call it wastewater treatment. They mean the same thing. But back before COVID, we were on the field trips invited to go up to the top of these where you could see some of this organic waste digesting. And these are some students looking at that. But this is our class a few years ago at the wastewater treatment plant. Now the process, there are 3 stages. We only have 2 stages in New York. I'll talk about that. But wastewater treatment involves many different things. So the first stage is the primary treatment, and this is more of the physical treatment. So we first have the screening, where we will take out large items. These are things like batteries, like large food items, little toys that kids might flush down the toilet, tampons, condoms, batteries. There's a lot of different things that come out in the screening process. And then we have grit removal, and this is where we will allow things to start to settle, and then primary settling. Now during this stage, we can remove 60% of solids, and most of that is through the screening process. We can also get rid of 30% of our organic waste. Now, we also will have something called flocculation. And flocculation is where you add a flocking agent. In fact, this allows substances to kind of clump together. And once they clump together, instead of them being suspended, they will clump together and then settle out. So that's what's happening during this primary settling and the grit removal. Now, we cannot remove pharmaceuticals. And we cannot remove pharmaceuticals from this stage in the process. Now, another thing to be added is there are a lot of microplastics that do not get filtered out. They do not settle out, so they will stay embedded or stay suspended in the liquid as we go. But now once everything settles out, so once you've removed the grit, like the sandy materials that have settled out, you allow a lot of this organic material to settle. And then it will go into this big tank for sludge digestion. But this is not the only time that we'll remove the organic material. When we are in the secondary phase, this is where we add aeration or we add oxygen to the sample. So we have like this raw sewage. We are adding oxygen, and that is increasing the biological component, or it's increasing the biological activity to allow some of these items to be broken down. And this occurs in the secondary settling. And all of the solids that are collected are then transferred over to a sludge digestion tank. So during the secondary stage, during the biological treatment, we are removing almost all of the organic waste. So anything that came from fecal matter, or anything else organic that was discarded, all of that is pretty much settled out and removed through this biological action. Now, when we put it into these sludge digestion tanks, we will then have them undergo anaerobic decomposition. And as always, there is a byproduct of anaerobic decomposition that is methane. And methane, CH4, is a very potent greenhouse gas. It's 25 times more powerful, or has 25 times more warming potential than carbon dioxide. So this methane is captured at the site, and oftentimes it is used as a source of energy for other actions or other activities at the wastewater treatment plant. Now because we're removing a lot of this organic material, we're also taking out around 70% of the phosphorus and 50% of the nitrogen. We cannot take out all of the phosphorus, all of the nitrogen, unfortunately. And another thing, we still cannot remove pharmaceuticals. We cannot remove any sort of medications that have been flushed down the toilet. This is why you should never flush your medications down the toilet, because we cannot remove them. Most wastewater treatment plants cannot remove them. Now, this sludge, when it is digested fully, then the liquid is extracted from it. And what is remaining can then be purified even more. It can be sterilized, and it can also be used as an additive for agriculture. At Newtown Creek, just over down the street, they actually have these little tiny pebbles. They look like marbles, and it is basically all of the organic waste that has been condensed, and it can be moved to a landfill, or it can be used as a nutrient source in the soil. And that is what happens here in New York. Now, because we do not have tertiary treatment, at the end of the secondary stage, we will add disinfectants. Now, that can be done with 3 different methods. You can use bleach, which will kill the bacterial component. You can use ozone, which will also kill the bacterial component, or you can use ultraviolet light. Now, all 3 of these will remove the biological component from the wastewater. Now, that is the end of our stage in New York City, because we only have primary and secondary treatment. So then after this, the effluent is considered clean enough to then empty out into the East River, or into the Hudson River, or into New York Harbor, or into the Atlantic Ocean, or Long Island Sound, depending on where the wastewater treatment plant is located. Now, in other areas, they have tertiary treatment. And tertiary treatment involves the removal of nutrients, most notably nitrogen and phosphorus. However, it is prohibitively expensive. The reason we don't do this in New York is because the population is so large. The Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant serves a lot of North Brooklyn, and serves about a third to a half, I'm not sure exactly, but a third to a half of Manhattan. So a lot of the wastewater, the sewage from Manhattan and Brooklyn comes into the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant. And our sewage system is so old that this tertiary treatment was developed after it was constructed, so it would be very expensive to add this. So our effluent is going to have higher amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus, which is why it is emptied out into larger bodies of water to kind of dilute those nutrients, so it is not contributing to eutrophication. Now, again, if there is a tertiary treatment, then at some stage in there we will have disinfection. You will not really have to specify where the disinfection happens. It's usually the last stage, if there's only primary and secondary. Oftentimes it would come after the nutrient removal, but you don't have to specify on multiple choice questions or free response questions when the disinfection takes place. If they have primary, secondary, tertiary, then the disinfection will take place as tertiary treatment. If it is only primary and secondary, it will take place at the very end before the effluent is released. Now, just the overview is primary treatment is physical. We are removing large solids and any sort of gritty material. Secondary treatment involves biological components, where we will remove organic materials through the actions of microorganisms. And the tertiary treatment is a chemical treatment, where we would remove phosphorus and nitrogen nutrients. And there is this little red asterisk because not every system has tertiary treatment. Now, in New York City, we have what is called a combined sewage overflow, as opposed to just 2 different sewage systems. So combined sewage means we are getting storm drain water, all of the little grates that are in the sidewalk, but we're also getting raw sewage from households and businesses. So we will have sewage and rainwater both going into the same system. Now, usually this is okay because the sewage and the water drainage from the street will catch in the sewers and then it will drain down. There's usually this little a physical method to prevent it from entering into a body of water. So this will go into wastewater treatment. That means some of the water from the street will go into wastewater treatment, and all of the sewage from the households will go into wastewater treatment. But note, that's on a sunny day. So what happens when it rains? Well, you build up a lot of water from these storm drains. And oftentimes this is good enough that this can be treated by the wastewater treatment plant. However, when you add the sewage from households, that will overwhelm this system, which means it will overflow. And whatever is overflow will then empty out into the East River, into the Newtown Creek, into the Hudson River, into New York Harbor. It will overflow anywhere near the wastewater treatment plant. And this happens in New York City. In fact, when we had the blackout many years ago, I was swimming over around Coney Island, and all the wastewater treatment plants shut off, and basically we found out that we were swimming in raw sewage. Yeah, but I came out just fine. Anyway, this happens every time it rains. In fact, when it's raining, if you can avoid it, if we're having a storm event, avoid taking showers. Avoid, if you can avoid taking a shower, avoid taking a shower. Avoid using a lot of water, because that added strain will cause this excess sewage to run off into the East River, into the Newtown Creek. Anytime you go by the East River, you can look for one of these signs. This just means this is a discharge point. So anytime that we have the sewage system is overwhelmed, this is where there will be an overflow, and you'll see a pipe that is emptying into the body of water. This actually is found in the Newtown Creek, which is already a toxic Superfund site, but now we're even adding more. So if you look from this reference point, the sewage treatment plant is somewhere over here. Okay, so the overview. The good thing in New York is that our stormwater runoff, for the most part, is treated. However, during storms, it is overwhelmed, and any sort of untreated water will run into the East River or Hudson River, New York Harbor, one of the waterways around the city. What I would like you to do is respond to this check for understanding. And for FRQ practice, explain how organic waste is removed during wastewater treatment. I hope that this video is informative. I thank you for your attention, and I will see you soon.